So this is a video I've been wanting to make for a while. I just haven't really gotten around to it yet, but it's definitely been on my mind as something that I want to make and I want to share with the world. Before I get into discussing any of this, I just want to make it clear I'm not currently a therapist, although I do plan on studying to become one when I go to grad school. Don't consider this like expert advice. It's just life experience and how I personally overcame, or mostly overcame, OCD. So, yeah, it's just my story, my personal experience. So, of course, I would encourage anyone watching this to supplement these things with expert advice. There are good therapists out there. There are great therapists out there, and I didn't even used to believe it myself. I had a lot of terrible experiences with therapists, but finally I did find a great therapist who really changed my life and taught me most of these things. If you've only had poor experiences with therapy so far, it doesn't mean you won't have a positive experience. It might just mean that those weren't the therapists for you. And as far as affording therapy, there are open door clinics as well. There's also online therapy, which I haven't tried myself, but I know that there's got to be some solution out there for you to find a therapist. And, if there's really not, then hopefully some of these techniques can help you. Okay, so with all that being said, yes, I did find a therapist. That was great. I found her a few years ago in college. I had previously tried out, about maybe 6 therapists in my childhood, and all of them were not good therapists. If anything, I did feel that they made my problems worse or did nothing. So I had a really bad view of therapy, and I didn't have all that much faith when I went to her, but my OCD was just becoming so severe, it was affecting my life so much that I did feel, what else is there to do but seek help? And, everyone's different, maybe she'll be great. And, lucky for me, she was. And so, although I do understand that there is a scarcity of good therapists, especially OCD specialists, you can find one, and I did. But I guess let's backtrack a little before I get into my recovery process. I guess I just want to briefly touch on what my experience was with OCD. So, a lot of the times when I tell people that I have or had OCD, I hear, "I never noticed you washing your hands all the time. I never noticed you cleaning all the time." Things like that. And although there are some people who have OCD who have cleaning compulsions and phobias about germs, there's a whole rainbow of other obsessions and compulsions that people have, and it's not all just cleaning and organizing. And just those like little quirks that people have, like if someone's like, "Oh, I color code my highlighters, I have OCD," like, no, you don't. You don't have OCD for color coding your highlighters, for color coding your clothes, for making sure your room is really clean. Like, that's not OCD at all. OCD completely takes over your life at its most severe, and it is just this overwhelming feeling of urgency, and you can't live with uncertainty, and you feel the need to obsess and turn something over in your mind and analyze it and research it. It's not a good feeling. And once I explained this to someone, he was like, "I have OCD about guitar. I play guitar all the time." And I was like, "Yeah, that's not OCD. You enjoy that. That adds to your life. Your obsessions and compulsions are draining, and you don't want to feel that way, but you feel that if you don't obsess about X, Y, and Z, and if you don't do what the OCD tells you to do, that something terrible will probably happen." And, you have vivid images popping up in your mind of your fears. And I don't necessarily want to go into the details of what my obsessions were, especially because people who haven't suffered from pure OCD don't really understand. But those of you who are suffering, you know that they can be really disturbing. They can make you feel like there's something wrong with you, that you're psychotic, that you're crazy, that you're a bad person, horrible person. But you're not, there's definitely someone out there who's experienced either the same obsession or a similar type of obsession to what you're experiencing, and you have a mental illness. And for me, there would be times where I would be so upset and distraught and disturbed by something that I was obsessing about that I would just be bedridden. I would be crying. I would be crying in public. I would be in class. I would be on my phone, like looking these things up, trying to figure out what I was trying to figure out. I would just be in the depths of misery a lot of the time. And it's different from depression because I didn't really feel that way genuinely. It's kind of hard to explain, but I just felt that way towards what I was obsessing about, or when I would have the worst of my spikes. And at its worst, that was definitely every day, pretty much all day. And then I would do my compulsions for hours a day. So I was pretty much slave to the OCD. I guess the closest thing I could compare it to is it really does feel kind of like being possessed or living in a nightmare. And then another thing I felt having this disorder was, no one's ever going to accept me if they knew that this was all going on in my head. No one's ever going to love me. I'm never going to feel better. Things like that. So, yeah, it's pretty hard. So, on a lighter note, now let's get into some of the things that I did to recover. And when I say recover, I don't mean that now I'm just 100% free of OCD, 100%. I got so much better and I'm 90% free of it. It's not that I never have spikes, I never have relapses, but again, even with recovery, you can't aim for perfection. So, step 1, I really put it as step 0 because it's kind of just a baseline before you even start doing any of your real treatment steps that are specific to your treatment. The best baseline for you to do that on top of is just living the healthiest lifestyle that you possibly can. And obviously, don't be paranoid about it, because mental health is part of health. But just generally, eating healthy food, obviously leaving room to treat yourself, but mostly eating healthy food, exercising regularly, but not excessively, getting enough sleep, doing art. You need to nurture your creative spirit, and if religion or spirituality is a part of your life, making sure that you make time for that. And then definitely social health, having a support system, at least one person that you feel you can go to, even if that is just a therapist, but making sure you have someone outside that you can talk to. So really just the best place to start from, the best framework in which to implement all these techniques would just be making sure that you're taking care of yourself. So aside from that, the real step 1 is to understand what OCD is and then label it. The first thing OCD involves is attaching too much importance to your thoughts. Like the average person, just a thought that pops up that is disturbing, that might not be so powerful, but for you, if you have OCD, it sticks in your head. It's the most pressing, important thing ever, and you attach too much importance to it. You attach too much weight to it. You start to judge yourself. You start to make conclusions. It's also an inability to let go and move on. So when you see these patterns, you should start to recognize them. And the first thing you need to do in your recovery is to separate OCD, your mental illness, from just you. So when you notice OCD patterns popping up, label them. Whatever you have to do in the moment, for the first few whatever weeks of treatment, that's fine. Just continue to do it, but label it. Like, say that your compulsion is to, I don't know, it doesn't matter, but just whatever it is, whenever you're doing it, just do it, but tell yourself, okay, this is OCD. This is OCD, like, I'm doing this because of OCD. I'm doing this because I have a mental illness, and now I am compulsing, and now I am obsessing. So that's kind of the step one. And I guess, like, I'd recommend doing that for, like, a few weeks at most before I think you're ready to move on to the next step. And then the next step involves postponing and limiting. So you have something that you feel the need to obsess about. Instead of obsessing about it right then, say, okay, I'm going to think about this at, for instance, 4 o'clock to 4:15, so you're postponing until later, and you're also limiting the amount of time that you're going to think about it. And if it continues to pop up into your head, the totally wrong approach is to be like, stop, no, I'm not supposed to think about that. Let it be there, but don't engage with it. Just let it sit there in the back of your head or whatever, and then bring your attention back to the present. But just let it be there, because if you fight it, it's only going to come back stronger, so don't fight it. Let it be there, but don't engage with it. Don't analyze, which is a compulsion. Don't engage with it. Don't have a discussion, an active discussion in your mind about it. And if you just can't help it, then just let it happen, but tell yourself, okay, this is OCD. I'm just going to let it be there. I'm just going to bring my attention back to the present. But as far as like an active sort of thinking where you're choosing to think about it and you're actively analyzing and researching or whatever your compulsion is, postpone to later, and then limit to not that long, probably. I mean, when I first started, I was doing my compulsions for hours, and even limiting it to an hour was seemed really hard to me. So if that's where you need to start, then start there. But that is really a long time. So probably 15 minutes, some people do 5 minutes, and then move on and say, I'll think about it at my worry time tomorrow. And again, when I say think about it, I don't mean when it pops up in your head, when it's not your designated worry time. Don't say, oh no, stop, don't think about that, bad, let it be there, but don't engage with it. There's actually a huge difference. In this microphone, it's popped up in the frame, and I'm just letting it be there, and I can move on and keep talking and just kind of I acknowledge that it's there, or I can be oh, okay, yeah, well, see, case in point. But basically, if the microphone is your OCD thoughts, then let it sit there, come back to the present. Obviously I see it, I acknowledge it, but it's there, I'll engage with it later. And then whenever your worry time is supposed to be, then you can really examine it. You can analyze it, you can do your compulsions or whatever, and then, until your next worry time that you planned, which usually it's every day, at least at the beginning, yeah, just let it go. Step 3 would sort of be to move into studying present moment mindfulness. When I notice that I am having an OCD spike, or I've gotten caught up in the analyzing my OCD thoughts, the first step for me is to use a maxim, which is kind of like a mantra, just to bring me back to the present. And some examples are, ask yourself how a person without OCD would respond to this situation. And that one's good because it kind of brings your attention to the fact that you do have OCD. You can kind of relax into the fact you can't really trust what it's telling you. Another one is, I don't know whether or not this is as urgent as it seems, but I'm going to have to live with that possibility. It might be as urgent as you think it is. It might not be. You don't know. But in order to live a fulfilling life, you're just going to have to move on for now. You can tell yourself, I'll think about that later, at the designated time you set to worry about it. Another one is sometimes you don't get an instant solution. Sometimes you have to take the risk of being patient. Even though it feels like the wrong thing to do, I'm going to choose to move on for now. So, you know, with kind of neutral statements like that, your OCD can't really argue with it, because then your OCD is going to say, but it is really that urgent, and you can just say, well, I don't know if it is. I hear the OCD, I'm still getting signals from the OCD, I'm going to choose to bring my attention back to the present for now, or to another train of thought maybe. But yeah, when it comes to present moment mindfulness, I supplement with a journal, and I do a lot of journaling exercises. Like, I focus on one thing as much as I possibly can, and I just write every little last thing that I notice about it for a certain amount of time or for a certain amount of pages. And that really brings you, to be able to focus on that thing. Another exercise, I just like making collages. I also write things that I'm grateful for in my life, or just things like that. There's some good YouTube videos with some ideas, but when you're not journaling, obviously you can still be mindful. It's just something I like to set aside time to do, hopefully every day. But when you're not journaling, like, you can still be mindful. Just look around you, notice the sensations you feel, bring your attention to your breathing or to what you feel in your body, or sights, sounds, smells, tastes, feelings. And then one thing that's really helped me with that is meditation. When it comes to meditation, I started out, well, I still use it. This app, Headspace, has been really helpful for me. They have tons of good meditations. They actually have a new one every day, but they also have this whole archive of different types, like meditations for sleep, meditations for anxiety, meditations for pain, meditations for sadness, and, all kinds of great meditations, and they're great. And it's an app made by an ex-Buddhist monk. So he's knowledgeable, and it's a good app. But obviously you don't have to use that app. You don't have to use any app. Just, you can study meditation any way you want. But for beginners, it's really good. And they usually have different options for the amount of time that you meditate. Like, you can do it for as little as 3 minutes, or you can do a 20-minute meditation, or 2 hours, and I'm working on gradually meditating for longer periods. And meditating is really, really nice, and it's really good for OCD. And, even if you have those thoughts pop up while you meditate, you notice it, you accept it, and you bring your attention back to your breathing. Another aspect of mindfulness is just paying attention to the world around you, like to what people are saying. Like, I know a lot of times, like, I would just space out thinking about my obsessions, and people would be talking, and I'd just be like, And for me, as a musician and artist and writer, it's also really important for me to, like, be able to think about things that aren't just concrete in the present, obviously. So, you can be mindful about another train of thought that isn't OCD related. Like, I feel like that counts, because for me, like, if I was just focusing on sensations and stuff all the time, that would not feel totally fulfilling to me. So, like, it's like you can do a mixture. Like, you can have times where you focus on physical sensations and, like, the traditional present moment mindfulness. You can have times where you're mindful of, your art projects, or, like, whatever creative things that you're thinking about. You even set aside worry times to worry about, like, your OCD thoughts, as long as it's, like, very limited. So it's really just about balance more than anything. Don't aim for perfection. Don't aim to be meditating perfectly in the perfectly correct way. Don't aim to be being mindful in a perfect way. Just do your best, and, like, you're doing great just by trying and making the effort, because that shows that you care about your well-being. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention another thing that I like to do sometimes is, like, going on a mindfulness walk. So just walking anywhere. It could be in nature, it could be, like, where you live. Just walking anywhere and, like, really trying to be mindful and notice the world around you, like, the different sensations, or, like, if you're listening to music, like, really focus on the music you're listening to, things like that. So you can really apply it to anything you're doing, but that is a nice thing to do. Sometimes being in nature can be helpful. And then just some additional lifestyle pointers that can help. My therapist talk to me about values-based decisions. So people with OCD sometimes have trouble making decisions because they go back and forth with everything in their mind, and they, are perfectionistic, and, and they doubt everything that they do. So, when there comes a time to make a decision, like, try to make the decision based on your values rather than, like, something you fear, or, obviously within reason, like, put a seatbelt on because you fear, but within reason. I think you guys know what I'm saying. Like, for the most part in your life, try to make decisions based on things that you value. And then if you feel like you aren't sure, like, oh, what if I made the wrong decision? Like, it's best to just move on and then on to the next values-based decision rather than to dwell on something, that really is in the past. And then with, like, your new recovery lifestyle, just some values that you might want to focus on would be, like, patience. So knowing that, like, a solution or an answer might not be instant and it might actually never come, and that's something you're gonna have to accept. So patience, faith, and it doesn't have to be religious faith, although that can be helpful too, but just, like, faith that things are gonna be okay, and faith that it's okay to move on for the moment. And then mindfulness, I feel like that's another value. Just being present in your life and in your day, and then, like, embracing the unknown instead of just saying, like, I don't know, and that's not okay. Just being like, I don't know, and, maybe that's a good thing, and there's a lot of things I'm not gonna know in life, and I don't have all the answers, and I can still move on for now. Another thing that can be helpful in preventing future spikes and stuff is to try new things as much as you can, even maybe getting outside your comfort zone a little bit, because that brings something new to your attention. Like, it stimulates your mind in a different way, and I feel like it's really mentally healthy for me to try new things. So, try new things. Try to go to, like, a new restaurant, try to talk to a new person, like, try to go to a new place, Another thing that's important to understand is that relapses will probably happen, and that's fine. Like, life is fluid, life has its ups and downs. Even when you're 90% recovered, like I am, I still have spikes when I get really stressed out. I still have times when I have a lot of spikes, so, yeah, I mean, I'm sure, you can expect to have relapses, and that's okay, because you, with these tools, like, you'll know how to get out of them. And then another thing is, I like to not aim to be happy. I feel like that idea can be really harmful, because then if you're not happy sometimes, then you feel like, why am I not happy? Like, why don't I feel the perfect thing? Like, and then I accepted the fact that I am going to be happy. I'm also going to be sad. I'm also going to be surprised. I'm also going to be afraid. Like, I'm also going to be excited. I'm also going to be a million other feelings, and I can't expect to always be happy. Like, I'm happy plenty, but it's like, to say, like, oh, I just want to be happy all the time. Like, I feel like you're probably not going to be able to meet that goal, because the natural state of emotions is fluid. So my goal is just to be, and just to take care of myself and be present. And, if you do that, then you'll be happy plenty of the time. And if you're sad sometimes, then welcome to life. Like, we're all sad sometimes, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I guess the natural course of events for, like, a treatment program would be, like, you would accelerate everything as time goes on. Like, you would start postponing, your obsessions more. You would start limiting the amount of time you thought about it, or limiting the amount of time you did your compulsions more, until maybe it's 0, maybe it's 5 minutes a day, maybe it's 10 minutes every other day, maybe it's once a week, but it's way less than what you were doing before. You would increase the amount of treatment-related things you do, like you would meditate for longer, maybe, or maybe you would, it depends on the person, whatever you feel works best for you. Maybe you would go on more mindfulness walks, like maybe you would do more journaling, mindfulness journaling, or you know, things like that. And yeah, gradually you should see your symptoms decrease a lot. And like, you know, don't expect it to go to zero, but like, just like, and don't expect it to be instant. I mean, for me to reach the level that I'm at in my recovery, which, like I said, is like around 90%, I would say, recovered, that probably took, I mean, that took like over a year, maybe even a couple years. So don't expect it to be overnight. It takes your brain a long time to form those new neural pathways and to form those new habits. So yeah, don't expect it to be overnight. But I mean, if you have a therapist, which I really, really recommend to support you, and if you do some of these things, you know, and you're working with a mental health professional, then you should see your symptoms start to decrease. I mean, they will decrease. There's no way that they won't, because if you're practicing not compulsing, then that's already, you know, that in and of itself is a decrease in OCD symptoms. So just by making a conscious effort, for sure, you will see your symptoms decrease, especially as time goes on. And, you know, don't expect perfection. So yeah, that's pretty much my story. I definitely live a much happier, more relaxed, more fulfilling life now than I did a couple years ago. I know how to let go of something now. You know, I know how to at least wait and, you know, postpone thinking about something if I really feel that it's that urgent. You know, yeah, I just live a much more open-minded life, I feel like, than I did back then. I really would hope the same for everyone who's suffering from this horrible illness. And I'll post some things in the description. Like, I think I'm going to post the rest of my OCD maxims, which are like the mantras that I use to like help bring me back to the present or to another train of thought that isn't OCD related. I'll probably post maybe like a link to some of the YouTube videos with like mindfulness tips or mindfulness journaling ideas, and maybe like a resource to find a therapist. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this, and I hope you guys all have a great day. And it's gonna be okay, and if you're feeling horrible and you're suffering from a mental illness, I'm so sorry that you feel that way, but it will be okay, and there are things you can do. So yeah, have a great day.